Why do ancient maps show lands that no longer exist? And why were so many of them hidden away or dismissed as forgeries? Maybe because they point to something we were never meant to know. Outlines of sunken continents, islands never officially recorded, and routes completely ignored by mainstream history. In this video, we'll explore forbidden maps, forgotten testimonies, and clues buried for centuries. Get ready to see the world, and the past, through eyes that refuse to accept silence as an answer. It all begins with a map. A weathered piece of paper that doesn't just guide, it questions. On it appear lands that no longer exist, and routes that were never meant to be known. Who drew them? Where did they get this information, centuries before satellites? The answer may be hidden in the very shadows of history itself. While the modern world relies on GPS and digital maps to find its way, there are ancient documents that tell a different story, one that's nowhere to be found in school textbooks. Maps that depict entire continents where today only ocean remains. Lands called Antilia, Mu, or even High Brazil, appearing and vanishing across centuries. But what are these maps trying to tell us? Deep within forgotten libraries, in museums that avoid the topic altogether, rest nautical charts drawn with a level of precision that defies any logical explanation for their time. Some date back to the 15th century, others, even older, and they show detailed islands and regions where nothing exists today. No ruins. No solid ground. No official memory. Why did great empires draw them? And more importantly, why were they later erased? The Buache Map, for example, is just the tip of the iceberg. Created in 1513, it depicts the coast of Antarctica without ice, in detail that wouldn't be verified until centuries later with radar technology. How is that possible? Was it inherited from even older sources? The coincidences are too many to dismiss as mere cartographic error. The lines are confident. The knowledge feels inherited. Scholars who studied these maps in depth, like Charles Hapgood and Eric von Daniken, concluded that there was indeed an advanced science in the past. A global cartography that connected forgotten continents with near microscopic precision. But when these ideas reach traditional academia, silence is the immediate response. Why so much discomfort? Why does this kind of knowledge need to be so aggressively discredited? This kind of erasure isn't new. History is full of moments where information is deliberately omitted. Censorship doesn't always come through fire or force. Sometimes it comes through academic indifference. Through labels like myth, legend, or misinterpretation. The map itself is real, but the story behind it is avoided. What if we're standing before physical proof of an era before our own? An age when advanced civilizations were already navigating the globe, recording islands and mountains that now sleep beneath the sea? What if these maps aren't just cartographic curiosities, but fragments of a puzzle that unravels the entire conventional narrative of history? In the next segments, we'll explore 6 enigmatic maps, and with them, 6 buried clues that the world is far older, far vaster, and far stranger than we've been taught to believe. Get ready, every ancient line might hold a modern secret. And those who dare follow them rarely return to the same point of ignorance. The Buache Map, dated 1513, was drawn by an Ottoman admiral using much older sources. And that's the first red flag. It accurately depicts the South American coastline and, most disturbingly, shows the coast of Antarctica, without ice. That wouldn't have been possible until the 20th century, when radar imaging finally pierced the frozen crust. How did Buache access this knowledge 400 years earlier? The admiral himself wrote that he used ancient maps from Alexander, Ptolemy, and other sources from ancient times. Many believe he was referring to maps that survived the collapse of a civilization older than recorded history. The map shows mountains, plains, and ice-free coastlines, exactly as geologists confirmed only after scientific expeditions in the 1950s. Was it a mistake? A coincidence? Or evidence of forgotten knowledge? Charles Hapgood, a history professor, studied the map and proposed that it was based on cartography created before the last ice age. His theory was even supported by Einstein, who wrote the foreword to his book. Hapgood believed that the Earth's crust may have shifted thousands of years ago, moving continents and submerging civilizations. This, he argued, would explain why some areas appear in geographically impossible positions. But Hapgood was dismissed by mainstream academia. His research, though backed by data, was labeled alternative. The discomfort caused by this map isn't just about what it shows, it's about what it implies. That modern humans were not the first to master the science of global navigation, that others came before us, and that they left behind traces like the Buache Map itself. It's important to note that the map was drawn using a spherical coordinate system, suggesting the use of advanced instruments. Its accuracy is such that some contour lines were only correctly mapped with satellite imaging centuries later. How was that possible in the 16th century, or even earlier, in the sources Buache used? This kind of evidence demands more than simplistic explanations. Some scholars argue that the maps used by Buache may have come from the Library of Alexandria or other now-destroyed repositories of ancient knowledge. Others believe that the Templars or secret societies may have preserved this hidden wisdom. The question is not just who made these maps, but why their creators are missing from the official history we're taught. If the Buache map is authentic, and all analyses confirm it is, then we are staring at irrefutable proof that something far greater existed before our current civilization. A civilization that knew the world in detail we're only now beginning to verify. And most unsettling of all, a civilization that vanished, but not without leaving clues behind. The Buache map, dated 1513, was drawn by an Ottoman admiral using older sources. And that's the first warning sign. It accurately depicts the coast of South America and, most disturbingly, shows the coastline of Antarctica, without ice. This wouldn't be possible until the 20th century, when radar imaging finally penetrated the glacial crust. How did Buache gain access to this knowledge 400 years earlier? The admiral himself wrote that he used ancient maps from Alexander, Ptolemy, and other sources from ancient times. Many believe he was referring to maps that survived the collapse of a civilization that predates recorded history. The map shows mountains, plains, and ice-free coasts, exactly as geologists only confirmed after scientific expeditions in the 1950s. Was it a mistake? A coincidence? Or evidence of lost knowledge? Charles Hapgood, a history professor, analyzed the map and proposed that it was based on cartography made before the last ice age. His theory was even endorsed by Einstein, who wrote the preface to his book. Hapgood argued that Earth's crust may have shifted thousands of years ago, displacing continents and submerging entire civilizations. This could explain why some areas appear in locations that today are considered geographically impossible. Yet Hapgood was ignored by mainstream academia. His studies, despite being supported by data, were labeled alternative. The discomfort caused by this map isn't just about what it shows, but what it implies. That modern humans were not the first to master the science of global navigation. That there were others before us. And that they left behind traces like the Buache map itself. It's important to emphasize that the map was drawn using a spherical coordinate system, which suggests the use of advanced instruments. The precision is so great that some contour lines were only reproduced accurately after satellite-based studies. How was this possible in the 16th century, or even earlier, in the sources used by Buache? This kind of evidence demands more than simplistic explanations. Some researchers claim that the maps used by Buache may have originated from the Library of Alexandria or other now-destroyed repositories of ancient knowledge. Others believe the Templars or secret societies may have preserved this hidden science. The question is not only who made these maps, but why their authors are missing from the official history we're taught. If the Buache map is authentic, and all analyses point to yes, then we are faced with irrefutable proof that something far greater existed before our current civilization. A civilization that knew the world in detail we're only just beginning to verify. And the most unsettling part, a civilization that vanished, but not without leaving behind clues. Long before Columbus crossed the Atlantic, medieval maps already depicted an island called Antilia. It had an elongated, horizontal drop-like shape and appeared consistently on 15th century maps, especially on Portuguese and Spanish nautical charts. Also known as the Island of the Seven Cities, it was surrounded by legends, a refuge of Christian monks who fled the Moorish invasion in the 8th century and founded a secret, prosperous society. Antilia wasn't just a popular myth, it was treated as a real geographic reference, appearing on maps like Toscanelli's and the Cantino Planisphere. These maps were used by serious explorers and funded by European nobility. Columbus himself may have been inspired by Antilia on his voyages. But the island was never officially discovered. Was it a collective mistake, or a convenient omission? Curiously, later accounts mention sailors who claimed to have seen the island and even landed on it. Spanish documents reference men who reported finding strange ruins and advanced architecture. But those testimonies vanished from official records, and maps began to correct Antilia's existence in the following decades. From a constant presence, it abruptly faded into oblivion. The island also appears in Arabic and Islamic sources, under different names but at approximately the same coordinates. This suggests that various cultures either knew of, or believed in, the existence of an island in the middle of the Atlantic. The pattern repeats: ancient accounts, detailed maps, and a sudden disappearance from mainstream narratives. Why? Some researchers propose that Antilia might have been part of a larger archipelago, now submerged due to geological activity. Others believe the name was a code meant to conceal the location of a secret civilization. Either way, its erasure seems intentional. When something vanishes from so many records at once, it's rarely by accident. Today, the name Antilia survives only as a historical curiosity, or in works of fiction. But to the ancient maps, it was real, navigable, inhabited. The story of the Island of the Seven Cities is symbolic. It represents a chapter of the past that was deliberately swept off the charts and out of the books. Not because it was irrelevant, but perhaps because it revealed too much. If Antilia did exist, and all signs point to yes, it was more than just an island. It was a threat to a history built on fragile pillars. And as we'll see in the next segment, it wasn't the only vanished land surgically erased from the official record. In the 16th century, a map signed by the Zeno brothers surfaced in Venice, claiming to be a copy of a much older original. On it, we not only see Iceland mapped with striking accuracy, but also Greenland, drawn in incredible detail, and without ice. This raises an unsettling question: how could someone in the 1500s have access to topographical knowledge that would only be confirmed by ice-penetrating radar 400 years later? The map shows channels, mountains, and inland islands that are now buried under kilometers of ice. To skeptics, this is simply a mistake or fabrication, but to researchers like Graham Hancock, it represents evidence of pre-Diluvian knowledge, inherited from sources the Zeno brothers themselves may not have fully understood. The precision suggests direct observation, something impossible at the time, unless Greenland really was ice-free in a distant past. Some researchers believe this map could be a remnant of a forgotten maritime civilization, one that navigated the poles and charted regions that are now uninhabitable. The theory of Earth's crust displacement, as proposed by Charles Hapgood, gains traction here. If Greenland was located further south thousands of years ago, its ice-free condition would make sense. But such theories deeply challenge the foundations of mainstream history. The story of the Zeno brothers is itself wrapped in mystery. They claimed the map was based on documents from an ancestor who had traveled to unknown lands in the north. These journeys supposedly occurred around the 14th century, a time when, officially, navigation was not advanced enough to reach such regions. The map, then, would be a bombshell for the accepted historical timeline. Naturally, it was quickly discredited. Despite that, the Zeno map continues to challenge modern scholars and cartographers. Its depiction of Greenland, when compared to modern topographic data, is disturbingly accurate. How can that be explained without accepting that there was once ancient, advanced knowledge, systematically ignored or suppressed? Why are these maps treated as mere curiosities instead of clues? Beyond Greenland, the map also shows islands and geographic features in the North Sea and Arctic that were only confirmed centuries later. This further supports the idea that the Zeno brothers accessed an ancient source of global geographic knowledge, possibly preserved by secret societies or passed down through esoteric traditions. In the next segment, we'll examine another cartographic artifact even more unsettling, one that not only suggests forgotten lands, but also navigation technologies that simply should not have existed at the time. In 1737, the French cartographer Philippe Buache unveiled a map that would leave even modern scientists baffled. On it, Buache depicted Antarctica, but not the ice-covered Antarctica we know today. His map showed the continent split by a vast inland sea, with rivers, valleys, and mountain ranges clearly visible, as if he had observed the region before it froze. The question is, how? Antarctica was officially discovered only in 1820, nearly a century after the map's publication. Moreover, its topography wasn't properly charted until the 20th century, using radar technology capable of penetrating the ice. Yet Buache's map accurately depicts several features that have remained buried under kilometers of ice for thousands of years. Is it a lucky guess, or a fragment of a much older body of knowledge? Buache claimed his map was based on ancient documents now lost to history. He also believed that prehistoric civilizations had mastered the art of global navigation. Many alternative researchers, like Charles Hapgood and Eric von Daniken, saw in this map strong evidence that Antarctica may have once been inhabited, perhaps by an advanced civilization before a sudden glacial cataclysm. The theory of Earth's crust displacement, which repositioned the continent to its current location at the South Pole, becomes relevant again here. If Antarctica once lay in a temperate zone, it would make sense for it to have been habitable and charted by ancient mariners. That would explain the confidently drawn rivers, lakes, and ports. But none of this fits the historical model we've been taught. Skeptics tried to discredit Buache, claiming he made guesses based on myths and speculative extrapolations. But the accuracy of certain elements defies that explanation. His map includes coastal outlines that weren't confirmed until centuries later through satellite imagery. And the detailed inland hydrography is virtually impossible to guess. Buache's Antarctica is a mirror of a world that existed before the ice. A world perhaps linked to other lost lands like Lemuria or Atlantis. Antarctica's very location, isolated and nearly inaccessible, fuels speculation that its secrets have not yet been revealed, because they are not meant to be. What kind of truth might it hold? With each ancient map, the official narrative grows weaker. When records from centuries ago align with modern scientific data, ignoring them is no longer a mistake, it's a choice. And as we move to the next map, marked by even stranger anomalies, suspicion turns into unease. Is there a pattern being deliberately concealed? In 1965, Yale University presented to the world a map that could rewrite the entire narrative of the discovery of the Americas, the Vinland Map. It depicted, in detail, the coastlines of Greenland, Canada, and even parts of North America, centuries before Columbus ever set sail for the New World. The most shocking part? The signature dated the map to the 15th century, and the language used matched medieval Icelandic manuscripts. In other words, the Vikings were here long before. If authentic, the Vinland Map proves that the Americas were known to European navigators as early as the year 1000. And more than that, it shows this knowledge was documented, charted, and deliberately ignored. For decades, historians tried to prove the map was a forgery. But chemical and ink analyses have never reached a definitive conclusion. Some claim the ink contains modern elements. Others argue it's due to environmental contamination over the centuries. The controversy only deepens the intrigue. Why so much effort to discredit a simple piece of parchment? Perhaps because it threatens one of the pillars of Western history, the heroic role of Columbus as the discoverer of a new world. Beyond its geographic content, the map features symbolic markings that raise even more questions: crosses at strategic points, inscriptions mentioning lands with mild climates, and place names with Norse linguistic roots. This suggests a far broader network of exploration, with settlements established long before we were taught to believe. The Viking presence in the Americas is already archaeologically proven at sites like L'Anse aux Meadows in Canada. But the Vinland Map is more than just evidence of contact. It's evidence of cartography. It shows that systematic knowledge of these lands existed, perhaps circulating among monastic orders or secretive societies that safeguarded such information. If this is true, the Americas weren't discovered, they were rediscovered. And behind this revelation lies an even greater question: what else has been erased, silenced, or hidden under the guise of a historical error? Who truly drew the first maps of the world? And if the Vinland Map is merely one fragment of the puzzle, the maps you'll see in the next segment may be the central pieces. Because they don't just depict forgotten lands, they suggest the world was once far larger than we've ever imagined. After everything we've seen, islands that appear and vanish, submerged continents, maps that anticipate modern discoveries, one inevitable question remains: who is rewriting history? And more importantly, why? When so many maps agree with one another, even when separated by centuries and continents, coincidence stops being a plausible explanation. The pattern repeats itself. Mysterious lands appear with astonishing detail, gain relevance, and then vanish from official records and maps as if they never existed. Explorers swore they saw them. Maps from different origins confirmed the same coordinates. Yet the dominant narrative insists on labeling them as mistakes, myths, or sailors' tales. The truth is that ancient maps are more than navigation tools. They're visual testimonies of a collective memory that refuses to die. They carry symbols, knowledge, and the geography of worlds that were either forgotten or buried. And many of those worlds didn't vanish on their own. They were deliberately erased to silence what didn't fit the official version of history. When we examine these charts with a sharp eye, something even more unsettling emerges. Perhaps these maps survived by accident, or by design. Maybe someone preserved them precisely so that one day, perhaps today, they would resurface. To remind us that truth is never destroyed, only recalculated. That is the power of mystery. It disturbs because it challenges control. The past cannot be imprisoned when its fragments keep slipping through the cracks. Every map is a fracture in a system that tried to harden too much, and each person who dares to investigate on their own widens that crack, until it can no longer be ignored. That's why this video is not a verdict. It's an invitation. An invitation for you to look beyond school maps, textbook facts, and prepackaged truths. The world was once far vaster, richer, and stranger than we imagine. And maybe, it still is. If all of this is true, then we're not just rediscovering the past. We're unearthing a history that still pulses beneath our feet, and one no one else dares to speak of.